Did you ever see the video on YouTube of the family just sitting in their living room watching TV and their aquarium just blows up? If you saw that and you don't have an aquarium, you were probably like, looks like I'll never get one of those. I ain't trying to have a tsunami run through my living room. But listen, this is not something that you should worry about. Could it possibly happen? Yeah, but is it something that you should lose sleep over? Well, let's analyze that. We have in our old fish house here almost 2,000 gallons of water in aquariums, and we're going to be adding more soon. So if anybody has a reason to worry about leaks and aquariums blowing up, it's us, trust me. But do we worry? No. We don't worry for a bunch of reasons. The first is we've had hundreds, if not 1,000 aquariums in the last decade. Just go back through our channel if you want proof. Almost all of the tanks that we've had have been bought used, and we've really only had one leak, and that was a 240-gallon aquarium that we bought that, to be honest, we weren't all that surprised when it leaked because it was in really bad shape when we got it. We bought 500 aquariums from an abandoned fish farm in Knoxville, Tennessee. These tanks sat for 7 years dry, and you know how many of those tanks leaked? Not one of them. The point is, we've had tanks of all shapes and sizes, and leaks have been incredibly rare, and we've never had one blow up. Maybe I should knock on wood. Does that still work? The second reason I don't worry about my aquariums blowing up is if I sat around and worried about all the things that could possibly go wrong, I'd never stop worrying. You want examples? 3,700 people in the United States die every single day in automobile accidents. So I guess we can't go drive anywhere. One person dies in the United States every single day slipping and falling in their bathroom. So we have to stay home, but we can't use the bathroom. R.I.P. Bob Saget. 4,000 people die of choking every single year in the United States. So we can't leave the house, we can't use the bathroom, and we can't eat anything because we might die. This is where people will say, well, I guess we should just stay in bed all day, that way we're safe. Well, that's not true either, because 450 people die per year in the United States falling out of their bed. The point I'm trying to make is, if you sit around all day long worrying about things that could possibly go wrong, you're never going to stop worrying, you're never going to be able to do anything, and you're going to end up living in a padded room somewhere. And if you're worried about your aquariums blowing up, well, just don't worry about that. I mean, leaks are one thing, but aquariums blowing up is incredibly rare. Like I said, we've got a whole lot of other things to worry about in this crazy world we live in. Stop worrying about your aquariums spontaneously exploding. But now, to completely contradict everything I've been saying, I have a tank right here that was leaking, but now it's not. Let me show you how I fixed it. This is an Aquarium 14-gallon rimless cube that we bought well over 2 years ago. We originally got it for Lisa to use to do an aquascaping demo at an event, but it was right in the beginning of COVID and we didn't end up going, so the tank was just sitting there. I ended up using it to do a manly tank, which I did a video all about. You can click the eye up in the top right corner if you'd like to see that video, but this thing has been all over the place since then. It's been a manly giant beta tank, a quarantine tank, and now it's completely overrun with snails. But you know what? That's okay, because we love snails. Particularly, my wife loves snails. This tank has been moved around more times than I can count. It's been all over the place in multiple homes and even states. It's even been torn down, moved, and set up again in this fish house 3 or 4 times since we moved here. The point is, it's been moved a lot. Moving aquariums is always a risky thing, especially a tank like this that has very little in the way of support. Most aquariums have the black frame around the top and the bottom. These aren't just for decorations. They provide a ton of support. With a tank like this, the only thing holding it together is tiny beads of silicone on all the joints. This is a super thin glass-only tank supported by a tiny amount of silicone that's been moved over and over again, so it's really no surprise that it leaked. Now, you might be tempted to just throw a tank like this away if it's leaking. Well, not me. This tank costs $100, and there's really nothing wrong with it. I mean, it leaks, but that's just because the silicone failed. Instead of throwing it in the trash, I decided to fix it, and if I'm being honest, this was a project anyone on Earth can do. I started out by draining it so I could move it to an easier area to work on, and then filled it up again. This was to determine where the leak was coming from. But if I'm being honest with you, this was a huge waste of time. I determined where the leak was coming from, but when I was looking at it, I was like, well, duh, this is a tiny tank. I might as well just reseal the whole thing.
What are you gonna do?
Put silicone on the entire tank. I mean, it's only this much, so she's gonna help me.
Baby kitty, is that okay? Baby kitty, is that okay?
Do you want to get in?
No.
You don't want to get in there.
So after draining it for the second time, I cleaned it out really good. I didn't use any chemicals or anything, just water and a rag to remove the algae and slime from the surface, as well as little grains of sand and even snail eggs. To reseal the tank, I used this product from DAP, that's D-A-P. It's 100% silicone that's aquarium safe. This is something I would usually get in a large tube and use a caulking gun to put it on, but unfortunately neither of the two small hardware stores in town had them, so I got what they had. This is going to bring up the question, what silicone is safe to use in aquariums? Listen folks, this doesn't have to be complicated. When you go shopping, whether it's online or at your hardware store, look at the tube or at the packaging, and a lot of times it's going to say aquarium safe. This one says it not only on the packaging and has a little fish, but it also says it on the tube itself. If you don't see that, don't buy it. That's all there is to it. Usually these tubes will say not recommended for use in aquariums, or it'll say aquarium safe. Look for aquarium safe. Don't overcomplicate things. Just trust me on this. If you don't see it, don't buy it. I don't care what anyone else online says. Yes, you might pay a tiny bit extra to buy the stuff that says aquarium safe, but it is absolutely worth it. And we're not talking about big money here. It's not like a regular tube of silicone costs $3 and this costs $325. It's not like that. It's just a tiny bit more. Trust me, it's worth it. But John, what brand do you recommend? I don't care. As long as it says aquarium safe. That's my favorite brand. With the tank clean and dry, it was time to apply the silicone. This is a simple process, folks, especially with a tank this small. For the bottom joints, I applied a thick bead and I just left it how it is. I didn't bother smoothing it out with my finger because this is a vulnerable area and it's where the leak was to begin with. Plus, it's going to be covered up with substrate, so if it looks like a big blob under there, it doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to see it. This is a technique I learned while I was up in Wisconsin at the Custom Aquariums shop. This is how they did it on big giant tanks, so I figure it'll work here. For the four corners, I put on a pretty good sized bead, but then I used my finger to smooth it out. Kind of like you would do a piece of trim if you're about to paint it in your house. This gives it a more finished look, and with the silicone being clear, it pretty much makes it disappear. All that was left was to wait 24 hours for the silicone to fully cure, and the job was done. So here it is, 24 hours later from when it was repaired, and you can see the outside of the tank is bone dry. And it only cost me like $8 for this tube. I actually bought 3 tubes of this, and I only used one. But what about a situation like this? This is a 50-gallon lowboy that's brand new with a huge crack going right up the side. Ow. Well, there's a couple of ways that you can do something like this. The first would be what I considered doing, which would be to go in there, remove all of the silicone from the inside, and then cut a piece of glass that you could then laminate on the inside here. You'd want to load it up with a bunch of silicone, get it over that crack, and then once everything cures, come in and reapply all of the silicone to the inside the same way that the manufacturer did it. Now this is a really ugly repair, but if you're going to use a tank like this or whatever tank you're fixing in a fish room or it's your business or something like that, and it really doesn't have to look really good, then that works perfectly fine. But if it's a display tank, you probably wouldn't want to do that. Or you could cut out all of the silicone, get a new piece of 1/4-inch glass cut, and just replace it, and then replace all of the silicone. This is a huge job, and sometimes it's not worth it because disasters can happen when you're trying to remove this glass piece. You can break another piece, you can cut your hand, it'll be anarchy.
Hey, how come Andrew gets to get up? That's right. If he gets up, we'll all get up. It'll be anarchy.
Now, the reason why I'm not doing either one of these repairs is because I bought this brand new, and this is how it arrived to me. It was damaged in shipping. So the person I bought it from has already replaced it. So if I'm being honest, I don't even know what I'm going to do with this. Please don't email me asking if you can have this. The answer is going to be no. I don't want anybody coming to my house. Anyway, there you go. This really isn't all that complicated. If you have an aquarium that's leaking, get yourself some silicone. It's super easy to fix. And if you're one of those people that sits around worrying about your aquarium blowing up, your parents should have raised you better and taught you to know that there's risk in absolutely everything that you do. Have fun in your padded room, I guess. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.